Good afternoon, friends. Stephen Ben-Nun here with Israeli News Live, and we're going to be getting into Nimrod. Boy, I'm going to take this from a lot of different angles. I'm going to be looking at this from a biblical perspective. We're going to be looking at this from the intel that I've received. I'm going to be looking at it from a historical perspective. And at the end of the day, I can't say whether or not I'm going to have more answers for you than questions. Because it just blows me away, just the knowledge and the things that I'm aware of this story there. First, I want to just share with you from the intel side of things, and this normally would be a message I would do on Patreon. In fact, I just did one on the coming civil war over on Patreon, about a 20-minute video, and it's something you may really want to take a look at. Because when I get into intel issues, I generally do that on Patreon because not everybody can appreciate intel, because intel is not prophecy. Intel is not prophetic. Intel is probability. It's information, whether you're garnering this from the scientists in the government, whether you're garnering it from intelligence sources there, that we bring some of this information together for you and share it with you. And so it's not always 100% on spot. We've been talking about these weather changes, for example, for last year and a half or so. And we're starting to see that more so now, especially this year, the floods, things like that. Some of those things we saw early on, like the winds and storms over 100 miles an hour up in the Northwest, right after we first reported it. Meteorites, not quite as much as what we had anticipated, but those were other things there. And again, probabilities. Now the sun, though, is being hammered by meteorites right now. So these things, sometimes they do, or maybe they may not come exactly the way we thought. But again, it's probability. But in the case of Nimrod, I'd shared with you on Patreon how that we went to war in Iraq for the body of Nimrod. One of the friends of mine that work in Washington, who was the advisor of the President Bush at the time when we were preparing to go to war with Iraq, was seeing Hillary Clinton there at the White House on a regular basis. And, she was very instrumental in this issue of Nimrod's body being brought back to the United States. Still, to this day, we don't know exactly why, but she was. And she's been around the White House for many, many years. She's still there. Still things are going on. But the true reason we went to war in Iraq was because of the body of Nimrod. And I've shared that with you guys, like I said, over on Patreon. And I think later I found out, I think it's Dave Hunt, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Some of the intel they had gathered as well, even before I'd spoke about it, had shared some of that same type of information. So I was actually surprised. I had no idea that they knew these things as well. So very fascinating. But of course, the body of Nimrod was brought back, and as I shared with you guys, and I don't know if they went into these details or not on their own information, but the body of Nimrod was taken and placed underneath the airport there in Colorado, in Colorado. I won't say exactly where, but that's where that body has been kept. And the government has been working for some time to resurrect that body. In fact, I've tried to keep up with that information on what's going on. I was told recently that the Israelis overtook the project, and that now Nimrod, his body is controlled by the Israelis. And why the Israelis have taken over this project is totally beyond me, other than I know they do work with fallen angels to begin with, and they even work with Nephilim DNA. Some of the intel that I've been given by people in the Israeli intelligence community there have shared that type of information with me already in the past, and I've shared that with you guys as well. So, but now we're dealing with the situation that Nimrod's body is there. The Israelis have taken over the project. So I was asking some questions this past weekend to try to get a little bit more update on this issue about Nimrod. And that's what caused me to dive deeper into this from a biblical aspect, historical aspect, and just share with you some of this information I've discovered. Nimrod, when his body was discovered, we were looking for the body not just because of the body of Nimrod, but because of the Tower of Babel. there was already evidence that suggested that the technology that was in Nimrod's tomb in Nineveh was technology that would help us with CERN. And oddly enough, even we did get the technology that allowed us to go interdimensional with CERN, even though CERN had already been built, but we got more technology that allowed us to do greater things with it. We found that, or since then, the CERN has also been used to go that multidimensional, and the scientists have run into an entity in another dimension that is claiming to be the spirit of Nimrod. So there has been a major effort to put that spirit that they have found in the body of Nimrod and resurrect that body, or possibly even take the DNA from Nimrod and clone his body again, so that this spirit can actually come back, which is really, really, really kind of like crazy, right? I mean, it's like nuts. But oddly enough, you have like Manly P. Hall, and he wrote about the Masonic legend, and I'll just quote here from this particular website. I actually learned this from Chuck Missler. I've been listening to some of his studies on Nimrod, and he quoted Manly P. Hall when it says, "Who knew the Masonic legend of Hiram Abif was a thinly veiled prophecy of the resurrection of Osiris, seems to have understood what Zahi Hawass was looking for and why, and consider that he wrote in a secret teaching of all ages." And this is from the secret teaching of all ages, the next part here. Let me just kind of change the color so we can see that better. "The dying God shall rise again. The secret room and the house of the hidden places shall be rediscovered. The pyramid again shall stand as the ideal emblem of solidarity, inspiration, aspiration, resurrection, and regeneration." Now, I need to share with you too, and I've shared this again on our Patreon channel. If you go back, I don't know where it would be at, but I've talked about there are two extraterrestrial entities that have met with government officials, not government officials, but CIA people there, that claim to be representatives of Ra, the sun god. And in the discussions that have been going on, there's been a lot of biblical discussion. They have claimed to be the true gods that brought the technology of the pyramids. And when they come, that they're going to reveal themselves to the world, that they're the ones that built the pyramids, how they built the pyramids. They claim to have been the ones that sent Jesus. They claim to be the ones that sent Muhammad to the Arabic people, and they claim to be the ones that sent the prophets. Now, do I believe any of that? No. Okay, absolutely not. In fact, this information was being shared with me because some of the people in the CIA that are dealing with these entities requested my input on some of the biblical things that were being presented to them. And as I did that message recently, I think on I Connect, about why are the Jews lifting up the serpent, that was one of the issues that they were saying. They were trying to justify that Satan was not evil, and that Satan would have never allowed the crucifixion of Christ, and they were blaming the people for the crucifixion of Christ and the Satan exonerating him. And that's what really troubled me about the Israel Society there that is writing. They wrote this article that basically exonerated the serpent. They exonerated Satan. They say, just kind of like what you see with which rabbi is that? That's I can picture him in my mind. Can't think of. Well, you have Rabbi Ariel Tzadok that does that. You have several rabbis that are basically telling you reptilians, serpents, they're all good guys. What a crazy thought to begin with, right? But anyway, they're talking about resurrecting, this prophecy here in the Masonic prophecies is that this dying God shall rise again. So anyway, I don't want to lose my train of thought. There's so much to be said here. Now, jumping back real quick to, as I mentioned to you, we went to war in Iraq in order to get the body of Nimrod, to get the technology for CERN, etc. This movie here, Deliver Us from Evil, is actually based on a true story. And it was because several of the Marines that actually were part of this, and they don't tell you in this movie this, but I know this from people that are on the inside that knew about getting the body of Nimrod and the artifacts that were there, that these men were actually possessed by a demon there, and this movie here was part of that. So I'll play that just a brief clip of this so you can see this. And if you ever get a chance to watch it, this movie is about 85% accurate.
As a cop, I've seen some horrible things, but nothing that can't be explained by human nature.
The policeman in this movie ends up becoming a priest, believe it or not. See, inspired by actual accounts. And what it was, the soldiers that got possessed were from New York. They came back, and just some really crazy things happened. And at the beginning of the movie, they don't show you that in here, but at the beginning of the movie, they show these soldiers going down. You could tell they're in a desert region there, but they were going down in a cave and they get possessed. A friend of mine actually met with the real priest that does the exorcism, and I don't know if they show that in this clip here, but he actually met with the priest that did the exorcism on here it is right here, I believe, right here. There we go. They're showing that just a brief clip of that, and I didn't catch that just right. But okay, here we go. Let's see if we can catch it again. Right there, right when that chair was shaking. And the priest told a friend of mine what you saw in the movie. He said, this is really what happened. This guy was so possessed of these demons. So, like I said, the movie doesn't really focus on what happened and why they took things out of Iraq. It just focuses on what happened to these men. And so, very, very disturbing. And I just thought I'd share that with you just so you'd know that. Now, the other thing that I learned, though, about Nimrod was that Nimrod, because I was asking, what does he look like? A contact that I have has not been an actual first-hand witness, but second-hand as far as the information of those that did see Nimrod's body when it was brought back. And they said he was about 7.5 foot tall. And he had 2 rows of teeth. He had an adult row of teeth, and then right in behind that is like baby teeth that are on the second row. Any of you guys know anything about the giant of Kandahar, the real story? And a good friend of mine, John B. Wells, on his program, Caravan to Midnight, John has talked about the Kandahar giant before as well. Actually knows some of the people. I don't know if John knows them firsthand or secondhand how it was, but I know John has shared with me a lot of the details about this story here. But the Kandahar giant also had the 2 rows of teeth, the front normal teeth in the back row. And I think the 6 fingers, 6 toes type thing instead. Much taller, though, than what Nimrod was. I want to say, if I remember right around 8-9 feet tall, something of that nature there. But like superhuman type of strength. And according to Pentagon scientists, they are the belief that the Kandahar giant, and now you're hearing it, this is being confirmed from Pentagon scientists there, they believe that the Kandahar giant is a genetic descent of Nimrod. Now they've got the body of Nimrod and they have the body of the Kandahar giant. So they have the ability to test the DNA of both, and they are genetically connected. Think about that, right? That's wild in itself. Now, if you look here, and the author of this website here, Biblical Science News there, and I'm going to blow this up where you can see this image a little bit better. This is a depiction of a statue of Nimrod holding a lion. Now look how small that lion is compared to Nimrod. So I guess really for him it was like killing a dog, right? A demigod is another name for the Nephilim, offspring of fallen angels. Gilgamesh was another name for Nimrod. Notice the fact that he is holding a lion, showing he is a giant. There you go, right? Think about that, right? So it'd be the same thing with Kandahar giant. Lion would be nothing to him. So, it's just some crazy stuff, right? Crazy things. Now, biblically, I want to share some things with you here for a moment. Like I said, I may have things kind of mixed up out of order because I was dealing with so much research, and so I'm going to just do the best I can here for you. We're in the book of Revelation, chapter 17. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet colored and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of the abominations and filthiness of her fornication. Upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw, I wondered with great admiration. Now, Mystery Babylon and Babylon are not one and the same. But I do believe that there could be a connection here, and this is something that I still have not explored completely as of yet. I shared with you guys a little while back that Mystery Babylon, many years I always thought this was the Vatican. And the more, even if you listen to Chuck Missler, Chuck really focused more on the eastern leg of the Byzantine Empire or the Roman Empire rather than the left leg, which is the Roman part. And I used to kind of get after Chuck on those things, not literally get after Chuck. I mean, I did get to meet Chuck, wonderful man. We recorded together on the book I wrote, Yam Suf, years ago. And he was just really, I really appreciated him tremendously. And just for those of you that may not know, I'll just quickly, just so you can see, I did a little tribute when he passed away to his work, and because it was just really, it was very, very disturbing to me, which I think Chuck only lived a few years after I met him. I was invited out to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and that's where I met Chuck at. And like I said, just a real precious man. And let me just see here. I'll put on there Missler. Here we go, right here. This is where I'd done that video there. You may not see it very well on here, but hopefully we can. Yeah, he was working with me, or we were interviewing, and this was actually going to be part of the History Channel. One of the reasons why Chuck did this interview. Let me see if it plays it in here.
We'll be integrated for 3 days. And obviously Jonah comes out, everybody understands that. Yeah. And first off, and in Matthew 12:40, that's where Jesus himself makes that allusion. So that's your safe ground there. But there's actually then, you can point to Abraham. Isaac was dead to him for 3 days. Right. I want to play a little bit of this for you guys here.
Anyway, and that was back before I had a beard back then. Well, that's been a long time ago. So, but anyway, Chuck, really precious man there. So we go back here, and like I said, though, we're looking at Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. I can't help but wonder if the modern state of Israel, as I've shared with you already, she's the mother of harlots. She's given birth to a lot of systems out there. But you got to realize who it is, because they're drunken with the blood of the saints, with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And we already know who put Christ to death. We already know who put the apostles to death. Okay, so there's no mystery into this. And of course, you can't just blame this on Jewish people. And I don't ever encourage anyone to do like that. The Pharisees were the ones that were behind that. They're the ones that called for the death. They're the ones that provoked the people to call for Jesus' death. And quite frankly, when you read in the book of Acts chapter 2, around verse 36, when all the house of Israel is gathered together in the homeland, we have Peter saying, "Be it known unto you, O house of Israel." So there's not 10 lost tribes. The tribes are already back all the way 2,000 years ago. He said, "Be it known unto you, this same Jesus whom you have crucified is made both Lord and Christ." So there's space to repent. They were repenting. They were accepting Jesus as their Messiah, etc. So anyway, so he goes on and said, "I'll tell you the mystery of the woman and the beast that carried her, which has 7 heads and 10 horns. And the beast that you saw was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is." Now see, I never got much into the beast itself, but the beast obviously has to be reptilian, or at least could even be a hybrid version or a Nephilim. The beast you saw was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. Think about that part of the verse right there for a moment. If he's a beast, he's not fully human. And if he was, Nimrod was, but he's not, he died, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. The intel that I have received is that through CERN, they have gone through another dimension and they have found an entity that is claiming to be the very spirit of Nimrod. And they're wanting to resurrect that spirit. If he goes into perdition, in other words, he goes all the way to the end. "And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. And here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. There are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space." So that could possibly answer part of that piece of the puzzle that even I had missing myself when I first began to speak about these things. So I don't always, if I don't know the answer to it, I'm not just going to sit there and keep jumping on a bandwagon and share things with you if I don't know the answer. Now, let's look at this here now. I think, let's see. No, we haven't talked. Micah chapter 5. Verse 4. And this shall be peace. V'hayah shalom. Okay? And this will be peace. When the Assyrian shall come into our land. Now, I did a message a long time ago about Pope Francis. And I was just looking genetically at his family, his lineage, and things like that. And I said, the guy fits all the characteristics. You know, he's a Jesuit, so it shows he's Jewish. He was his parents, I think, were descendants. I forget where it was, which put him. I think they were Italian, so it shows that they were Esau's descendants. And I forget what it was that I discovered on the fact of being the Assyrian. But let's set that aside for a moment, and only for the sake of consideration, maybe when Chuck speaks about this, when the Assyrian shall come into our land, we're actually looking at a future coming of Nimrod. Now, Chuck does make a very powerful argument on this. We shall tread in our palaces, then shall we raise against him 7 shepherds, 8 princes among men. And they shall waste the land of Assyria with the sword, and the land of Nimrod. Now, in that verse there, verse 5, Nimrod's not alive. He's just speaking about his land being wasted. And he shall deliver us from the Assyrian when he cometh into our land, when he treadeth within our border. But now the Assyrian is alive. The argument with some is that the destruction of Assyria, or the fact that the Babylonian kingdom was going to, or go back to the destruction of Syria, that has already happened in history. But in reality, the Babylonian king, which is believed to have been Nimrod, never entered into Jerusalem. You remember the angel, the Lord sent the angels there. They killed so many of their people. They ended up backing out. So in those days, Nimrod never went into the city. And quite frankly, even Assyria was never fully destroyed. Because if you consider, for example, I think in the book of Genesis, it says actually, let me see. I think it's in Isaiah. Let me first look at the quote in Isaiah here. It says here, I have commanded my consecrated ones, yea, I've called my mighty ones for mine anger, even my proudly exalted ones. Hark, a tumult in the mountains like as a great people. Hark, the uproar of the kingdoms and the nations gathered together. The Lord of hosts mustereth the host of the battle. They come from a far country, from the end of heaven. Think about that, right? These people that Yahweh is bringing is not coming from earth, but from the end of heaven. Even the Lord and the weapons of his indignation to destroy the whole earth. Howl ye, for the day of the Lord is at hand, and the destruction of the Almighty shall it come. Therefore shall all the hands be slack, every heart of man shall melt, and they shall be affrighted, pains and throes shall take hold of them. They shall be in pain as a woman in travail. They shall look aghast one another. Their faces shall be faces of flame. Behold, the day of the Lord comes cruel, full of wrath, full of anger, to make the earth a desolation and destroy the sinners thereof out of it. For the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. Jesus talks about the exact same things in the book of Matthew chapter 24. He goes on to say, go down to verse 13, therefore will I make the heavens to tremble, the earth shall be shaken out of her place for the wrath of the Lord of hosts, for the day of his fierce anger. And it shall come to pass that as the chaste gazelle, as the sheep that no man gather, they shall turn every man to his own people, and shall flee every man to his own land. Every one that is found that shall be thrust through, every one that is caught shall be fall by the sword. Their babes also shall be dashed in pieces before their eyes. Their houses shall be spoiled, their wives ravished. Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, who shall not regard silver. As for gold, they shall not delight in it. And their bows shall dash the young men in pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes shall not spare children. Watch verse 19. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldeans' pride, shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. Babylon. When you look at the entire prophecy here, though, this is not a prophecy of Babylon 3,000 years ago. This is a prophecy of Babylon today. And if you look at Genesis, Sodom and Gomorrah, toward all the land of the plain, behold, and lo, the smoke of the land went up as the smoke of a furnace. Sodom and Gomorrah as if a nuclear bomb went off in it. There ain't nothing left of Sodom and Gomorrah. You can't dig up a remnant in Sodom and Gomorrah. Practically. You know, I know that, what was his name there? I can't think of his name right off the top of my head. It'll come to me here in a little bit. But there has been some small remnants of brimstone and stuff found there. But it really appears that Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed by a nuclear weapon. And I know people would think that's crazy. Because it's like, well, there was no technology like that back then. Maybe there was. Nonetheless, the modern Assyria is the land of Syria and Iraq. We went to war with Iraq, overthrew this land, but we haven't wiped it out like we did, like Sodom was wiped out. And we've gone to war with Syria, and we have just turned this entire country upside down, destroying it. I mean, it really blows you away. And then, of course, we go there because we want the body of Nimrod. Not we per se, but these evil nutcases did. And, even though Hillary Clinton was so involved in that extraction of that body, and we know that the Israelis overtook the overseeing of the body of Nimrod, think about who was pushing the war with Iraq. Netanyahu. That's why I don't think the issue of Netanyahu is over. I cannot help but believe that Netanyahu is going to come back, him and Trump as well. I have to share some things with you. I got to see more of the conversation that went on privately about President Trump, what he's going through, what Melania is going through. So I got some firsthand knowledge about that I'll share with you a little bit later, maybe on Patreon or something. So anyway, and then not only do we have that, but you got to remember Babylon, as again, when we're looking at Babylon is going to be laid waste according to the prophecies that we're reading over here. Not in Micah, but I think it's Isaiah. Behold, here we go. Yeah, back in the book of Isaiah chapter 13. So Babylon is going to end up like Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, will that actually be, according to Revelation, the mystery Babylon? The daughter of Babylon? I know a lot of people believe it's the United States. I know that there's people that, that believe it could be Israel. Or could it be Damascus even? That was part of the Assyrian Empire. That would have been part of Nimrod's empire. I don't know the answer to that. But I will tell you, let me just see here. Another one, when it comes to the destruction of Assyria, we can find in Daniel 11. And I've shared this with you many times before. Daniel chapter 11, let's look at verse 36 on down. And the king shall do according to his will, and he shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, and shall speak strange things against the God of gods. And he shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished, for that which is determined shall be done. So some kind of king is coming. Is that the Nimrod king? I don't know. Neither shall he regard the God of his gods of his fathers. Ve'al Elohai avoteav lo even. There it is. Elohai is gods, and of course avoteav, his fathers. He doesn't care about the gods of his fathers, and that's kind of interesting though that his fathers have multiple gods. So it's not talking about a people with one God, and neither the desire of women. That's just what always made me think of as the Pope of Rome, right? Maybe I need to look closer at the word chamidat of desire. I'll have to go back to that later. He shall magnify himself above all, but in his place shall he honor the God of strongholds, or the God of war. And a God whom his fathers knew not shall he honor with gold and silver, and with precious stones and costly things. Isn't it interesting that there's so much claim that these fallen angels always want gold, right? He shall deal with the strongest fortress with the help of a foreign god, whom he shall acknowledge and shall increase in glory, and he shall cause them to rule over many, and shall divide the land for a price. And at the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him. Now that's an incorrect translation. It says right there, Itanagach imo melech hanagiv. Imo. You cannot translate im as against, only as the word with. With him, and it's the king of the Negev desert. It literally is saying that the king of the Negev pushes with the king of the north. And actually the word they're using for north is the word Tzifon, which is the hidden king. Wow. Think about that right there, right? The king of the north right here is Hatzafon, a hidden king. Could that signify the fact that Nimrod, who was considered to be a king of Gilgamesh, was hidden all these years. Yeah, they use the word Siphon for north. They don't use the word Negev for south, but they do use the word Siphon for north. Now, a hidden king, and Israel has gotten involved with the body of Nimrod. Now, I originally, when I taught this, I was thinking that this was NATO and Israel working together to go and overthrow and destroy the land of Assyria. Now, it does say, Aliav Melech HaTzifon, okay, that the king of the north, or the king of the hidden king, they will go over. They go over the lands, Berekevet, which is their chariots, and with their horsemen and with their many ships, and shall enter into the countries and shall overflow as he passes through. He shall enter also into the beauteous land, and many countries shall be overthrown. Now, if you think about it, now, of course, Nimrod's not been brought back officially as of yet. But then again, neither has this land of Babylon been totally wiped out like Sodom and Gomorrah either. So is there something yet to come? I don't know the answer, guys. I really don't. But I'm just sharing with you, talking out loud, sharing some things with you for everybody to think about. All right, so that was over there in Daniel 11. Isaiah 17, also remember the burden of Damascus. Behold, Damascus is taken away from being a city, and it shall be a ruinous heap. And Damascus has never been a ruinous heap. The cities of Aurora are forsaken. They shall be for flocks, which shall lie down, and none shall make them afraid. The fortress also shall cease from Ephraim. Ephraim is a representation as the house of Israel. Remember when Paul was on his road to Damascus? And he was going there to do what? To destroy everything. To kill all the believers there. And the angel of the Lord stopped him, or not the angel of the Lord, Jesus stopped him. Jesus appears to him in a vision, not the angel of the Lord. I'm correct on that, sorry about that. But when he does, that pillar, that light that comes down, and he said, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? He says, it's hard for you to kick against the pricks. And Paul says, who are you, Lord? I'm Jesus whom you persecute. You see, Jesus had to stop Paul because the scripture of Damascus becoming a ruinous heap could not be fulfilled at that time. Wasn't that hour. It wasn't the hour for the fortress to cease from Ephraim. And in Damascus was the house of Israel. Remember, Jesus had sent his apostles abroad. He said, go only into the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Syria was one of those places. That's why there was a major church in Damascus, and that's why Paul was going there to destroy it, because they were the believing house, or part of the remnant of the house of Israel there. And the prophecy of Isaiah 17 says that Damascus is going to be destroyed, but it would also be a fortress for Ephraim, which represents the house of Israel. It couldn't be fulfilled back then. And again, as I've said often to you guys, if you go down to verse 10, we find out who's guilty of making this happen. For you have forgotten the God of your salvation. That's the Jewish people. And you have not been mindful of the rock of your stronghold. That's the Christians. Because Christ is the rock. Israel believes the God of their salvation. Therefore you did plant plants of pleasantness and did set it with slips of a stranger. And if you look at this in the Hebrew there, and I don't have time to really go into the verbiage of this right here, but what it's talking about here literally is, in other words, the United States and Israel have overthrown Syria, or they'll overthrow Syria and cause the Christians to die by using third party or contract soldiers in the country. In the day of thy planting thou didst make it to grow, and in the morning thou didst make thy seed to blossom, a heap of boughs in the day of grief and desperate pain. I mean, that's to Israel's shame, and to the Christian shame in America. This is why I'm so against evangelicals going underneath Talmudic rabbis of Israel. I'm not against I'm not against these rabbis. I mean, they have a right to believe whatever they want. But the thing is, you're to be leading them to Christ, not you going up underneath their tutorage. Jesus already said about the Pharisees that their teaching was a serpent doctrine, basically. He actually says that you are vipers and serpents. So the teaching is a serpent doctrine. We may get into that here in just a moment here. All right? Let's see here. Revelation chapter 9. Wow. I actually brought this up and already had it highlighted. I forgot I had it highlighted, but this was something that Chuck brought out in one of the videos I was listening to. That's actually why I brought it up, and then I forgot I'd highlighted it. He said, the shapes of the locusts were likened to horses prepared unto battle. And on their heads were, as it were, the crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men. That's reptilians, friends. That's reptilians. Chuck said these locusts are not normal locusts. These are really like Nephilim. I believe Chuck actually uses that expression, like Nephilim. And if I'm not mistaken, where was that at that I shared with you guys? Let me see if I can remember it by heart. Okay, was it Joel? Or is it Amos? Let's try Joel chapter 2. A great people, here we go. Not ever been the like, neither shall be any more after them, even to the years of many generation. Fire devoureth before them, behind them a flame blazeth. The land is as the garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolate wilderness, right? Here it is. The appearance of them is the appearance of horses, and as horsemen, so do they run. That just shows the mere size of them. Right? And then we find the same thing in the book of Revelation. The locust, they're likened to horses prepared into battle. I never realized the two could be linked together until Chuck mentioned just that. And then, of course, I remembered what I'd found in Joel. They had breastplates as it were the breastplates of iron. The sound of their wings is the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle. They had tails like unto scorpions, and their stings and their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name of Apollyon. I'm telling you, friends, we're about to see things happen on this earth that ain't very pleasant. I'll just tell you like it is. This is something that's really difficult, and I don't know if we're really ready to get into this. This is from 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. But again, it's talking about the Antichrist. Paul says, now beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and by our gathering together into him, that you be not soon shaken in mind, or be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter, as from us, as that the day of Christ is at hand. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except their coming and falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. And again, there he is, the one that goes into perdition, as we read earlier here in the scripture, is the son of perdition. Could it be Nimrod? Maybe. I just don't know. Who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Now, I do believe that when we talk about that, we're getting into Daniel's vision there about the feet of Daniel and the miry clay and the iron mixed together. And it says they don't mix. It doesn't mix. But yet the feet are like that. And that, I think my wife is the one that actually shared her revelation with me on that it was AI mixing with the human genome. And oddly enough, as crazy as this may sound, in the Intel world right now, they are trying to put souls in the AI entities that they have created. As far as I know, they've not been successful as of yet, but that's on a different level altogether. But just think of that. All right? He sits in the temple of God. The way Satan is going to get control of you is like the Holy Spirit is supposed to be within you. You are the temple of God, and he wants to be in there. But this entity is wanting to take that place. Now, oddly enough, and I can't say it, you already know what I'm talking about. Harold Calcevilla, when I interviewed him about that issue right there, said that in the NDEs that they were having, the people were coming back panicked, saying that they were signing a contract with the devil on a spiritual plane, that their soul was being removed from their body because of what they had taken. And it was allowing an archon to take its place. Could that be part of this? I don't even know. I really don't know. But, I mean, like I said, this video may bring up more questions than answers, but I'm just kind of sharing a broad perspective. You know that what withholdeth that he might be revealed in his time. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. I think personally, the mystery of iniquity could be the fact that the people are staying bound to the law. And I've been trying to work on that. I have to do that maybe as a separate video. And this has a lot to do with right here. If you look at where Jesus speaks in Matthew 7, not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Right? Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name? And in your name have cast out devils, and in your name have done many wonderful works? Then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you that work iniquity. Notice the word work. You work iniquity. See, it's by works. And Jesus really condemned and uses the word iniquity when he's dealing with the Pharisees and Sadducees. So I just wanted to throw that in there for you to think about there. Let's see here. Don't remember why I had Genesis up here. Let me just look real. Okay, this here. Oh, this was another thing I thought was interesting. I want to just quickly share this with you in closing. Cush begot Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. All right, now, Hu Haya Gibor Said. There you go, right there. That's now Gibor is mighty. Said. All right, so Nimrod was a mighty hunter before the Lord, and in the beginning of his wisdom was, in the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech and Akkad and Calneh and the land of Shinar, and out of that land went forth Ashur and builded Nineveh and Rehoboth, Ir and Calah. I wanted to just share this in closing because there was something that always came to my mind when I thought about Nimrod being a mighty hunter, and that was Esau being a lot of people think a mighty hunter as well, but Esau is not a mighty hunter, but a cunning hunter. And the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter. The word actually is not cunning, it is yodeh. Yodeh is knowing. He was a hunter with knowledge, with an understanding. And I cannot help but wonder then if in the book of Yashar, or Jasher, let me see if I can find it. I actually found this on a guy's website. Let's see if this is it. No, this is just where Josephus and them are kind of clarifying that. Let me just find this real quick. Yeah, this is something that, and I have read the book of Yashar before, and I totally forgot about this, but it is attributed to the book of Jasher that Esau killed Nimrod. And that's in Jasher 27:4. And again, I know that the book of Jasher is quoted in our own canon of the Bible several times, I think. But I don't know if we have an original document to really translate it from. I don't use this as a biblical reference. I'm only using this as a historical reference. And in light of the fact that Esau is considered a knowledgeable hunter, whereas Nimrod was a mighty hunter, which signifies his giantism and Esau's cunningness or knowledge. It says in Jasher 27:4, and a certain day Esau went in the field to hunt, and he found Nimrod walking in the wilderness with his 2 men. And all his mighty men and his people were with him in the wilderness. Let me make this a little bit bigger for you guys. And the people, in the wilderness, but they removed at a distance from him, and they went from him in a different directions to hunt. And Esau concealed himself from Nimrod, and he lurked for him in the wilderness. And Nimrod and his men that were with him did not know. And Nimrod and his men frequently walked about the field at the cool of the day, and to know where his men were hunting in the field. And Nimrod and the 2 of his men that were with him came to the place where they were, and Esau started suddenly from his lurking place and drew his sword and hastened and ran to Nimrod and cut off his head. Could this be the real reason why Nimrod or Esau was called a knowing hunter? I don't know. Anyway, these are some things to think about, guys. Listen, I really appreciate you tremendously, and please definitely, visit our website, IsraeliNewsLive.org, and if God lays it upon your heart, support the work we do here. You see it above the video anyway. Our mailing address, Stephen Ben-Nun at P.O. Box 156, Sunbright, Tennessee 37872. Then you can always donate securely online just by clicking right there, donate online. It doesn't matter what kind of credit card or whatever you want to use to donate with, or PayPal, whichever God lays upon your heart. But if he lays it upon your heart, we do greatly appreciate your support. If you haven't seen this video I did here on the word love, you gotta see that. That was an amazing revelation that God gave me, and I trust it's a blessing to you. And also, and just as a reminder, the EMP shield. And in the description, you'll have the information about your INL 50 coupon. But when you're shopping, whether it be for your vehicle, your home, I have one, and I did not install mine for the house as of yet. And lightning destroyed our TV back home. If I just had the thing installed, it would have paid for itself with that one lightning strike. And the unusualness of lightning strikes, even here where I was at the other day, the storm, unusual number of lightning strikes. It was like completely off the charts there. For that, even if you're not looking at the EMP aspects of what we could be facing, that alone is worth getting. And again, if you use the coupon code there, when you add it to the cart, instead of paying $3.89, you apply that coupon code there because it's $3.89. But when you apply INL 50 and you apply that, it knocks $50 off for you. I've not been seeing sales lately, friends. So normally I always ask people, wait till you get a sale. But here lately, we just haven't been seeing the sales. So if God lays it upon your heart, you want to get it, and it'll be something for your family. No matter how many you buy, they always take $50 off, and I think that's a great thing. Stephen Ben-Nun with Israeli News Live. Thank you for listening. I hope it's been a blessing to you today. And don't forget, Patreon. You'll see a link on the description below for that as well. Going to be sharing more videos there with you guys here tomorrow, so I hope you get a chance to see it. God bless and have a great evening.